Hello, hello. Welcome to Make Kind Loud. Conversations that turn up the volume. Oh, I think we're frozen. Hold on one second. Delia, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
The video is frozen for some reason.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, but Our video is frozen. So, 1 second.
No problem.
All right, let me jump over to Facebook and see how it looks over there. Gotta love technology.
I know. I'm checking your page too to see if it's working.
Okay. Okay, I think we're up. I think we're good. Hello again. Welcome to Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume. I am super excited for our guest today, Miss Delia Perry out of Ohio. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So I'm going to read a little bit about you, and then we are going to just jump in and have an amazing conversation.
Awesome.
Delia has always had a passion for motivating and encouraging others. She was thrilled to bring her strengths to her podcast, Girls for Greatness. On her weekly podcast, Delia interviews other women who have overcome their own struggles in order to find success and fulfillment in their life. She highlights how her guests are using their own greatness to make an impact in the world. Girls for Greatness exists to build confidence and belief in others' ability to change, grow, and live the life they were truly meant to live. I love that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about yourself to start off with.
Well, let's see. I am first and foremost a wife and mom of two. I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, so they keep me very busy. I used to teach, high school Spanish and English, and I loved working with that age group. But ended up stepping away when I started a family, and then I kind of dabbled in some other online businesses before I kind of decided that my focus wanted to be motivating and inspiring other people, and that's why I started my podcast.
I love that. I love this. So, a high school teacher. Tell me about the kids. How was that on a daily basis?
It was good. I kind of was fortunate because I got to see both ends of the spectrum before I got out of teaching. I taught in a private school in the Detroit area, and then I decided to go completely the other route, and I started teaching alternative ed in the inner city before I walked away from teaching and started my own family. But I've always said that was an amazingly valuable time in my life because I learned so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think high school kids get a bad rap, but they're cool little people.
Exactly. It can be challenging. I mean, I got out before the whole cell phone craze hit, so my hat is off to these teachers today because I don't know how they do it and keeping everybody in line and keeping everybody focused. Because I had a hard enough time and my kids didn't have cell phones yet. So.
Right. Amazing. So tell me about Girls for Greatness. I love the premise of it. How did it get started?
Like I said, I was kind of doing some different things online, and I was doing some online fitness and nutrition coaching at the time. And I liked that because I had an athletic background and fitness and nutrition were big for me in my own life. But what I really started to hone in on was the motivational part of what I was doing. I felt like that was so key in the women I was working with, to pour into them, trying to help them work on their mindset just as much as their physical bodies. And I really just kind of felt like that was where I was being called to use my gifts and talents. And so I just kind of embarked on a year-long journey, really just trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do. I thought I was going to start a blog and discovered that writing just really wasn't my thing. I'd much rather be speaking on like a podcast. So I decided to get this idea to do Girls for Greatness. I decided to make it an interview-based podcast because I wanted to highlight other women's stories like you, Louisa, who's going to be on my podcast next week. Just people who have overcome their own struggles to get to where they are and yet are still putting good back into the world despite what they maybe have had to overcome or what they've been through in their own life. People who have decided not to settle, not to stay stuck, but have said, I can use what's happened to me to further myself and to better other people.
I love that. So did you have some struggles in your past that has led you to this path?
I have. Yeah. I really struggled a lot self-esteem wise through college. My high school years amazingly were great. I really loved that time of my life, and college too was great, but I just had some experiences that really wreaked a lot of havoc on my own self-esteem, and I really let that spiral me down a path that I really stayed stuck in for a long time through my adult life, through the beginning years of my marriage. And I would say just in the last 3, 4, or 5 years, I've really been able to let go of a lot of that and be at peace with who I am inside and out.
I love that. My friend Mia is watching, and she says, I feel you on the writing thing. I'm a blogger that gets great.
I love it, Mia.
So people get stuck, right? Like you just said, and sometimes it's hard to get unstuck. Yeah. So 3 to 5 years ago, what prompted you to get unstuck?
Well, I had done a lot of self-development, reading myself through the businesses that I had. And that was really my first introduction to that whole world of self-development. And so I started to kind of embark and push myself to attend different conferences, which each played a role, I feel like, in moving me that much further forward. But when I really, I think, owned what was going on and figured out where things were coming from was through a course that I took on storytelling. Yeah. And we had to kind of dive back into our most painful moments. And that really brought up a lot for me. And it helped me realize that I had let comments of other people just play over and over in my head. And those were the things that I was clinging to that had, destroyed so much of my own self-confidence and started a huge comparison game for me for years, feeling like, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't this, I wasn't that. That really is the first time that I really dived into it. And then I took some heavy emotional intelligence training in the last 2 years in Columbus, close to where I live. And that has been instrumental as well. Yeah. So yeah, the hard work of going inward is never easy, but still worth it.
It is. And that's where growth happens, right? Because everyone has stuff.
Yeah.
We've all been through something. Yes. And if we allow it to cripple us, then that's where the stuckness comes from. Yes. But it's amazing that you went back and dug in there and figured out what was happening so that you can let it go.
Yes, exactly.
Was it when you finally released it, how did you feel?
Like a huge weight had been lifted for sure. It just, it took, me being willing to go back and figure out, where those messages had come from, what had happened in my own mind. But it was also me forgiving, the person that I had these issues with. And then also forgiving myself for letting myself be so inundated with those messages for years and years and years. That was key. And like I said, it was like a huge weight had been lifted. I mean, everything wasn't like magically perfect, because I don't think that ever is. And I still struggle with many of the same issues. At times, I think just because we work through things doesn't mean that they go away. But I have different tools now that enable me, I think, to know my truth, know who I am, and move past.
That's huge. You mentioned two things that are just like so powerful: forgiving the person or whatever the situation is, and then forgiving yourself for allowing yourself to wallow in that for so long, even though you don't even know that you're doing that. And so, because when you're in the stuck, like you don't realize that you're in it until you start doing the steps to get out of it. Right. So I think forgiveness is huge.
It is,
especially forgiving yourself, because that's the thing that will help you move forward and be better.
Right. Exactly. I totally agree. And I think it's impossible for us to truly, authentically let our gifts shine in a way when we're holding on to things. And things come up all the time for us. So like I said, it's not a one and done thing. There's, other things that have come up in my life that I've had to, learn to work through as well. But if you can think of it that way, that it's almost like a roadblock.
Yeah.
Being able to be authentic.
I love that. So tell me, you've had some amazing guests on Girls for Greatness.
Yes.
What are some of the lessons you've learned through these amazing women?
Oh, there's so many. I always say that I'm learning right along with my audience every time that I have someone on. It's never like, I'm the expert and I'm having them,
Right.
But no, I'm not. So I'm learning, this was a huge endeavor because a huge project in a way for myself, even just knowing that I was going to be learning right along with everybody else, but, also the one hand asking the questions. So, I've learned so much just about people's ability to be resilient and ability to truly bounce back from almost anything, and that's a choice, though. That's got to be something that I think every single one of my guests somewhere along the way chose to say, this happened, I went through this, whatever, but I am not staying on this path. I'm choosing a different path. And it was a matter of choice.
Yeah.
And it may not have happened overnight. It may have taken years of counseling. It may have, taken a lot of work, on themselves. But the fact that it was a choice of them choosing to do. And I think that's a great thing to remember for all of us, that in the, at any moment we can choose to be different. Maybe it's not, we choose a totally different career, or we choose to, change our whole way of being in an instant, but you can make these small decisions, small choices every day that over time, will add up.
Yeah, yes.
So, yeah.
Exactly that. I totally agree with that, because every single moment and every single interaction, you get to decide who you are going to be in that moment. So maybe, 5 minutes before, it was not your best self.
Right.
But very next interaction, you can choose differently.
Right. And you we've talked about that too. When I interviewed you, about how, and you say it all the time in your videos, that you put out every day, that it's a choice, whatever you're faced with, whatever you're, comes your way in a day, it's a choice in how you respond. And I know that sometimes I feel like when I say that, like, I know that there's heavy, traumatic things that we go through, and can be it's not just a flippant way of saying, well, just choose to be happy. No, but you can choose, I think, in the moment, how you're going to speak to yourself, how you're going to view what's ever happened or what's ever going on around you. I mean, that is always something that's up to us.
I agree. My friend Stuart is on, and he's amazing. He said, would you ever consider a male feminist in a wheelchair who likes to empower women to greatness?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely shoot me a message. I mean, I'm open to a lot of things. So yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but for sure.
You hear that, Stuart? Send her a message.
A message.
Stuart, I need to have you on the show too, by the way. Side note. And then he says the most important time in your life is right in this moment.
For sure, Stuart.
I agree with that because you know what has happened, and there's nothing we can do about it. We can't change the facts of what happened, but we can change how we deal with it going forward. And the future hasn't happened yet. So I think we get into a situation where we're so concerned about what happened in the past, and we're so concerned about what's going to happen in the future that we miss the beauty of the present. And I love that you're highlighting people who have gone through things and who is now being present, because being present is key in everything that we do.
That's so true. That's something that, it's funny that you touch on that. It's something that I think about a lot. I lay out a lot of intentions in the morning. It's kind of more how I start my day. And one of those things that I almost repeatedly seem to come back to is to remind myself of the power of a moment and the power of being present, and how it's so easy to go through my day running from task to task and not be focused and in the moment. And so that's something I've really tried to hone in on in the last year or two. So that's a really great tip.
I love that. And so you have 2 kids, right? Are they both girls?
No, I have a 13-year-old girl and an 8-year-old son.
So with your podcast, Girls for Greatness, how are you empowering your 13-year-old daughter?
Well, I think, obviously there's been guests that I've wanted her to listen in on, and she can, take things from those experiences, those episodes. But I think more so, I feel like, or at least I should say, I hope that she is seeing that this is a passion of mine to put good back out into the world.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about being kind, kindness in our home, kindness towards our brother, kindness towards our friends, and just the importance of using your gifts in a way that you're giving back. And so that's really how I hope she views what I'm doing. And I know, I'm sure it gets annoying because it's a pull on my time at times, but she understands, and I hope she understands. And I think it's a good example for her. And I hope she takes that and, sees that she can use her own gifts and talents, whatever those are, to.
Yeah, I firmly believe that kids, they're little, but they're little people, you know what I'm saying? And they see what we are doing, and they are aware of what's going on around them. And for you to consciously decide to model this good and kind behavior for your kids is important, because we can talk all day long about how important it is to be kind and this, that, and the other. But if we aren't putting that into action, then, actions are more believable than words.
Right. I totally agree. It starts with us, us as parents.
It does. And we just have to, day by day, do our best.
Yes.
And again, it's not, we're not perfect. People aren't perfect. No one is perfect. But we can do our best to not harm, and we can do our best to be as kind as possible.
Yes, exactly. And it starts with our example. It starts, I think for me, one of the things when it comes to kindness in my kids that I have to really be on top of and be mindful of is my words whether it's to them or to myself or to my spouse, or even my words about other people that I encounter. Because, sometimes I've noticed like certain things would slip, like I might, say something that's not so kind about somebody, and they're like immediately, they're always watching, they're always listening.
Yeah.
So I think even just something as small as that is really important.
That's huge because communication and collaboration is key, and we can't get through life without other people.
Right.
My friend Ferg in New Zealand said, rude parents equals rude kids. Yes, Ferg. And it's about, you and I talked about how sarcastic I used to be. And I had nieces and nephews who could come back at you real fast.
Right.
And it's the example that we set and that we put out into the world. So it's our jobs to just be the best version of ourselves that we can be in every single moment. And when we stumble, to get back up and say, apologize to yourself, apologize, whatever, but just get up and say, my bad, I can do better, I can be better. Exactly. And then do better and be better.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah, so that's amazing. I absolutely love what you're doing, and I appreciate the fact that you are highlighting people who have, went through whatever they went through and then overcame it, and who is now trying to put the good back into the world, because it is up to each and every one of us to do our part to make this world a better place. And it doesn't have to be something on a grandiose scheme. Exactly. It doesn't have to be, whatever. We can just be better in our own communities, in our own families, and then that can ripple and change the world. So I appreciate you and everything that you're doing. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Louisa. It's been an honor, and you obviously are doing such amazing things with this show, with what you're up to. And I know that this movement is going to be huge, and I totally commend you. And it's been such a joy to get to know you.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you can leave our audience with one tip about how to be our best selves, what would that one tip be?
One tip. Wow, there's so many.
Or two, whatever.
I think in order to be your best self, you have to have self-love for yourself. You have to love yourself. And maybe you don't love every little thing about you, whether it's your body or who you are in every situation. But in general, when you can love yourself and have that confidence that you are out there being your best self on that day. And sometimes, your best isn't the same from day to day. Sometimes, we run into things that trip us up, but the fact that you're actually aware and you're doing your best in that moment, or whatever that is, you can feel confident in yourself. I think that is huge in anyone being their best self. Yeah. In general.
I think no, it makes perfect sense. Self-love and just being okay with who you are, because you are enough.
Yes.
In this very moment.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love what you're doing, and I know that we are gonna be great friends, and I'm excited about that. So this has been Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume, from my heart to yours. Thank you all for joining in. And remember, it is every Friday at noon Central Time, where we bring on good people who are doing good in the world, and we talk about it. Thanks again to my guest, Delia Perry. Please check her out. You're welcome. Please check her podcast out, Girls for Greatness. The links will be in the comments. Thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.